What is up? It's Jim Ellie with Reactive Training Systems, and today I have an interesting topic I want to talk about with you, and that is about burnout. Now, I've received this question on my Instagram, Jim_RTS, and an athlete was wondering how can they avoid burnout in powerlifting. And today I want to go over 5 ways for you to minimize the likelihood of burnout. The first thing that is important to do if you're trying to minimize burnout is, before you really dig in deep into a powerlifting program, I think it's important that you outline the goals and the aspects of your life that are really important to you up front. When I work with an athlete and we start working together, one of the first things we do is we have a call and we talk about the things that are going on in their life that matter to them. How much time do they want to spend hanging out with their family and making sure that they have time for their family? How much time do they want to spend on any other hobbies that they might have? Do they have a job? Do they have a responsibility to something outside of powerlifting? If they're a student, then how much time do they need to spend studying? How much time do they expect to be spending outside of the gym? It's not even how much time do they think they should be spending, but how much time do they want to allocate to those key variables that they've outlined to matter to them. You have to think long term. What is this sport of powerlifting going to give me in the next 10 years? Or what do I expect from it in the next 10 years? The second step is, after you've outlined the values of your life, the things outside of powerlifting as well as powerlifting that matter to you, then you're gonna set individual goals within powerlifting that you would like to achieve, things like milestones that you can look forward to, so that you can start breaking that down and to figure out, what are the steps I'm going to take? What are the opportunities that I'm going to take advantage of? Who am I going to surround myself with to ensure that the likelihood of those goals being accomplished is at its maximum? You're going to outline your values, and then you're going to set goals within each value. So once you do that for powerlifting, you'll do that for the other things that matter. When I start working with a lifter, if they have business goals that they want to work towards, then my responsibility is to make sure that the training plan that we develop is allowing them to spend time on the business. It's my responsibility to figure out what's the minimum effective dose for this lifter to make progress towards their goals. If you're not coached by anybody, then you have to take responsibility yourself and really acknowledge that you have other goals that matter to you. One of the great things about working with us is that we have a free online training log that all of our athletes utilize, and we actually track the progress towards the goals that they set out from the beginning. If they want a 250 kilogram squat and a 150 kilogram bench press and a 250 kilogram deadlift, then we can literally look at their estimated 1 rep maxes and see how we're moving along with every single block that we implement. So if they have a block that doesn't go well, then we analyze that block, we do a block review, and then maybe a meta block review depending on how much training they have with us. And we analyze how much progress are we making towards this goal. Even if the 1 rep max decreased, how can we learn from that? What can we take away from that block that might be perceived as bad? And so we can start stacking up as many successful blocks on top of each other. And that's a very key part of minimizing burnout, is creating some understanding that you are making progress and you are receiving value from the time and the energy and the mental effort and the physical effort that you're putting into that sport and that goal and that value. Because at the end of the day, we have a million other things that we could choose to do. We don't have to powerlift, but there's something about powerlifting that keeps us here and that makes us want to work harder and grind for another PR, because there's something really genuine about the sport of powerlifting. What I tell my athletes all the time is, powerlifting is one of the few sports where you get to see the results very immediately. The strength that you gain is relatively rapid. We see improvements in technique on video. We see the strength increase on the training log that we have. So measuring progress is very important, and I think it really helps with burnout. Now, not every lifter needs to compete, and not every lifter cares about competing. Powerlifting as a skill is still something that you can develop, even if competing doesn't matter. So if competing is important to you, then you got to compete. Compete 2 to 3 times a year if you can, if your time allows for it, but compete as often as your schedule allows and your training and your coach kind of decide is the right frequency for you. Most of my athletes compete once or twice a year. Sometimes they're able to compete 3 times a year, but a lot of the lifters that we work with are competing at the highest levels, so they train at the most important meets that they can. A lot of times it's 2 to 3 meets a year, and that allows them to stay focused and keep that energy and that zone in focus that's required to make progress, because they have a competition that's going to make them prove themselves every 3 or 4 months. Of course, if you're in the UK or if you're in the US, there's probably a competition available to you even sooner than that. So sometimes you'll just have to say no. And I do work with lifters sometimes that want to compete at every available meet that they can, but there is time where you need to spend developing. Make sure that you're spending adequate time developing the skill so that you're not just beating yourself up every single training cycle without any real mental rest or physical rest. That's where planning the actual approach to getting closer to your goals matters, because there is going to be time where you need to take a break. As you probably know, powerlifting is a very taxing sport. You work really hard, then you feel like trash for a day or two, and then you repeat that process for a long time. And sometimes you might not want to feel like trash any days. Maybe you want to have a bit more time spent on your social life, or maybe you want to spend more time on family, and maybe it's a whole week off, maybe it's just a washout week or a pivot week, maybe it's a 6-week hypertrophy block where you're just focusing on low specificity movements. You don't really care if your estimated 1 rep max increases, but you are having fun with the exercises. You like the pump that you're getting, you like the movements, you like the muscle that you're building, and that allows for a little bit of a mental break, a mental shift, so that when you are ready to start focusing hard on building that 1 rep max or the estimated 1 rep max, that you can, and that you're ready and you're excited. We talked about it in the beginning of the video, that it's important to outline your values, what matters to you, what goals do you have for your life, and how much progress are you making towards them. At some point, you must review those. Are you still as passionate about powerlifting as you were 6 months ago? Do you still care about having a rich social life? Do you still care about spending time with your family? Or are you spending too much time with your family and you're not getting enough of you time? And you need to reanalyze where you want to go. Rewire, reapproach, reinvest time, and start to diversify the energy, the time, and the thought that you're putting into each one of your goals and each one of your values. If you don't reanalyze, you're not able to see that the path that you're going is leading to nowhere because you don't have an end goal in mind. So that's really all I have for you guys. There's 6 steps. I kind of added some. There's probably more steps to it. At the end of the day, the topic of burnout is all about really understanding yourself. It's understanding what matters to you as an individual and how does powerlifting integrate into those other goals that you have for your life. It's very rare that we only have one thing that matters to us. And I think oftentimes lifters neglect those other variables because it can be easier. It's easy if you just have one thing that matters. If powerlifting is the only thing that matters, then you can neglect some of the other things like health and wealth and happiness. It's a very important distinction that you have to make, that just because something is less important than powerlifting doesn't mean that you shouldn't be spending any time on that thing. Maybe powerlifting builds the quickest and grows the quickest, but at least you're still spending time eating the right foods and spending enough time getting sleep because your health matters to you. Once you know what it is that you care about, that's when you can start making noticeable and impactful progress towards ensuring that in 5 to 10 years, you've made progress in many areas of your life so you don't have that burnout feeling where it's like nothing else is getting done but powerlifting. And that can feel really overwhelming and scary. And I'm hoping that this video can minimize the likelihood of that happening. And if you have any questions about this concept or this topic, please feel free to message me on Instagram, Jim_RTS, or send me an email. It's jim@reactivetrainingsystems.com. I'd really be looking forward to listening to you and helping you out if you're having issues with burnout. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll talk to you next time.